since we went head-to-head. Don't hold anything back.
It will be my pleasure to push you to your limits and surpass them.
So, Blaze the cat. She has appeared in a lot of Sonic games over the years, and she has had a presence within the Sonic franchise for a long time now. However, despite that, she hasn't really had a relevant / main appearance in a Sonic game since, well, her introduction. The Sonic Rush series, and do you want to count 06? Her backstory was already completely changed, so do we even want to count that? I guess if you really want to stretch it, we could say Sonic and the Black Knight was her last relevant appearance. I think you see the point I'm already making here. I guess it all depends on how you look at it, but I think we can all agree that unfortunately Blaze the Cat hasn't really been put in the spotlight in a very long time. If you clicked on this video, you probably already know what Blaze the Cat's backstory is, but just a quick recap. Blaze the Cat is from an alternate dimension called the Soul Dimension. In that dimension, she is the protector of the Soul Emerald. She basically takes on a similar role that Knuckles has protecting the Master Emerald. She's a princess, she's royalty, she's pretty damn important. And while I was doing research for this video, I also learned that Blaze actually has a similar backstory to Tails as well. By that I mean that Tails was teased and made fun of for having two tails. In the Soul Dimension, when she was young, Blaze the Cat was teased for having fire powers. Personally, I wouldn't make fun of a character that had fire powers, even if she didn't have total control over them. I would not feel the need to ever make fun of someone with abilities like that, especially if I have no way of countering them. Anyway, while it isn't established that Blaze is meant to be the Soul Dimension equivalent of Sonic the Hedgehog, it's kind of interesting that she has similarities to Sonic, Tails and Knuckles. She's a princess who takes her job very seriously and protects the Soul Emeralds just like Knuckles protects the Master Emerald. Well, depending on what Sonic game you're playing. She's not exactly as fast as Sonic, but just like other characters, she can keep up with him. This is just one of the reasons why I think it's a shame that Blaze doesn't get more time in the spotlight. Because I would love to see Sonic, Shadow and Blaze team up together, taking down Eggman, Eggman Nega, some other enemy. Just some kind of scenario where these three characters come together and form a new trio within the Sonic series. I think it would be cool. Sorry Silver, but I would much rather see Blaze fighting alongside Sonic and Shadow than you. Get out of here. Maybe we should get a Sonic game where Sonic, Shadow and Blaze are the main heroes, and Silver gets to be Blaze's sidekick. See how much he likes it. Oh, but let's make sure we change his backstory so he's not from the future, right? We'll have to say he's like maybe from the past, yeah? Let's completely just change Silver's backstory and have him be the sidekick for Blaze the Cat. That rarely says anything, doesn't interact with anyone but Blaze, and just dies at the end. Back to Blaze the Cat's origins. She first appeared obviously in Sonic Rush on the Nintendo DS back in 2005. Feeling old? I know I am. During the game, Eggman has managed to steal the Soul Emeralds, and Blaze has entered Sonic's dimension to chase after Eggman and retrieve the Emeralds. It's an interesting thing with this game. Blaze is dealing with Dr. Eggman, while Sonic is dealing with Eggman Nega. So the two Eggmen basically swap their enemies for this game. Indeed, Eggman Nega is also apparently from the Soul Dimension. I made a whole video about Eggman Nega, so I'm not going to go into it here. But the character started out from the Soul Dimension just for another game to say he's from the far future. You know, this series really knows how to give someone a headache sometimes. Anyway, Blaze the Cat is very much like a lone wolf. She would rather be on her own. She isolated herself from ever making friends before. She just likes to fight alone and focus on the mission at hand. Friendship is not part of the mission, therefore it's not going to happen. However, after meeting Cream the Rabbit during her adventure, she starts to open up a little bit more and starts to accept the idea of having a friend. However, it still takes a while for Blaze to admit that she should ask Sonic for help. However, towards the end of the game, especially with Eggman and Eggman Nega teaming up, Blaze admits that she can't do this alone, and she agrees to team up with Sonic. She successfully collects all the Soul Emeralds. Sonic was able to collect the Chaos Emeralds during his journey, and the two of them transform into their super forms. That's right, Blaze the Cat also has a super form, Burning Blaze. Imagine Super Sonic, Shadow, and Burning Blaze fighting side by side together. Or just in general, I know I'm going to rant about this later in the video, but I'm going to mention it now as well. I just want to see Burning Blaze in 3D. I want to see Burning Blaze in action in a 3D space. Anyway, after defeating Eggman and Eggman Nega, Sonic and Blaze part ways, with Blaze feeling a little bit more open to the idea of, well, friendship. Her next appearance was in Sonic 06, where her backstory was already completely changed and now she's from the future and just stands there, not really doing anything throughout the whole story. Yeah, we're not going to talk much about this. Blaze the Cat is irrelevant in Sonic 06. Her only significant moment in this story is dying at the end of Silver's campaign. After 06, Sonic Rush Adventure was released. And that game was very interesting because it took place within Blaze's dimension. Sonic and Tails ends up in the Soul dimension, and once again they have to team up with Blaze the Cat to save the day. At first we were meant to believe that Captain Whiskers was this new enemy, this new threat for Blaze and Sonic to take down. Fast forward later on though, we learn that once again it was Eggman Nega and Dr. Eggman who have teamed up and are the true enemies of the game. One Super Sonic and Burning Blaze fight later, they are defeated once again, and Sonic and Tails heads home. Blaze appears in the DS version of Sonic Colors, she appears in Sonic Generations, she appears in various spin-off games like the racing games. She forms a team with Silver and Vector in Team Sonic Racing, probably one of the weirdest teams we've ever seen in a Sonic game. She appears as Sir Percival in Sonic and the Black Knight, she's playable in the Mario and Sonic games. So like I said earlier, it's not like Blaze the Cat hasn't been relevant in the series, she has appeared in a fair amount of games. Which is why I didn't feel like it would be accurate to title this video Should Blaze the Cat Return, like I did for Dark Sonic or Eggman Nega. But this is still one of those unfortunate cases of a character with an interesting backstory. She has a pretty good reputation amongst the Sonic community. She's a cat with fire powers that can also run as fast as Sonic. Like, yeah, she's an interesting character with interesting abilities. And we've already seen how fun she can be to play as and just see in action. Why has this character been kind of benched within the Sonic series for a very long time? I think one obvious answer is her backstory being very complicated. Her backstory itself isn't hard to understand, but think about it this way, every time Blaze the Cat makes an appearance in a Sonic game, you then have to make an explanation as to what she's doing there. Because, well, she's from another dimension. It's not impossible to assume that possibly Tails or maybe another character created a device that could allow them to communicate with Blaze while she's in her own dimension. Maybe that's how she ended up at Sonic's birthday party in Generations. Tails was like, hey Blaze, Sonic's birthday's coming up, do you fancy hopping over to our dimension and be part of the birthday surprise party we have for him? And Blaze is just like, sure, let me just grab a Soul Emerald and I'll just teleport over. That's another question, does she always have the Soul Emeralds on her when she travels to the other dimension? I guess it's safer to assume that she has the Soul Emeralds with her whenever she hops over to Sonic's dimension. I imagine she wouldn't like the idea of leaving them unguarded, especially when potentially there's a more psychotic and unhinged version of Eggman running around. So anyway, that is my assumption on one of the reasons why they choose not to include Blaze often anymore. But an obvious counter-argument to that is, well, why not just make a Sonic game that takes place in her dimension? Or a Sonic game that takes place in both Sonic and Blaze's dimension? So I don't know if that's even one of the reasons why she doesn't get the spotlight anymore. So we've already waited this long, who knows how much longer we'll have to wait until Blaze the Cat gets to be in the spotlight again. As I continue to wait, let's talk about it. Let's discuss Blaze the Cat and how I would go about including her in a Sonic game again, actually giving her the spotlight, making her important, making her relevant, having her be part of a main story. I guess the first question should be, what type of Sonic game would she be in? Would we have another 2D game like Sonic Rush and Rush Adventure? I wouldn't mind that. Maybe it's time for a new 2D Sonic game that isn't based on classic Sonic. I think this would be the safest option to, I guess, reintroduce this character that hasn't been in the spotlight for so long to new Sonic fans and potentially just igniting a new group of Sonic fans showing intrigue and wonder and interest in this character. So a new modern 2D Sonic game similar to Sonic Rush and Rush Adventure, more so Rush though please, would probably be the safest way to do it. A 2D story focusing on Sonic and Blaze teaming up once again to take down Eggman and possibly even Eggman Nega. Anyway, that's kind of like the mundane, basic, safe answer to this question. And while I wouldn't be against it, I don't want to settle on just another 2D Sonic game with Blaze being playable. I want a 3D Blaze. I want Blaze the Cat and possibly Burning Blaze be playable in a mainline 3D Sonic game. Whether that be something like the Boost games, something like Sonic Adventure, Adventure 2, or Sonic Frontiers. Actually, I think Sonic Frontiers would be the best template to focus on here. Especially with Blaze's backstory being from another dimension, imagine a Sonic game like Sonic Frontiers where you take control of Sonic, Blaze, possibly someone else, maybe Silver, maybe Shadow, but the adventure is taking place in both universes. You've got a few locations in Sonic's universe and a few locations in Blaze's universe, and it's a big open zone like Sonic Frontiers. Having the opportunity to utilize Blaze's fire abilities in different ways in a 3D open space sounds really fun. I'm a sucker for fire powers. I love characters with fire abilities. So being able to control Blaze the Cat, using both her fire powers and her speed and acrobatics against boss fights and just enemies in general, especially if they're similar to the enemies we fight in Sonic Frontiers, that sounds like a lot of fun. Here's my money. I'll take 6. Regardless if it's like Sonic Frontiers or, like I said earlier, a boost game or adventure style game, I definitely think it would have to be a game that has multiple stories that are like intertwined with each other. So similar to Sonic Adventure 2, where you maybe have episode Sonic, episode Blaze, and again maybe even a third or even fourth episode where you play as another character. And you get to play through stages, go through the story from Blaze the Cat's perspective, and during her adventure you come across Sonic and you interact with him, you team up with him. During Blaze's adventure she meets Shadow for the first time and actually interacts with him. I know they probably already know each other by now, but we've never really seen them interact with one another, and I think that would go for, well, an interesting interaction. Hell, you could even make it a rival fight or something, where maybe at first Blaze and Shadow are at odds with one another, and they fight each other, and during Blaze's story you obviously play as her to defeat Shadow, during Shadow's story you play as Shadow to defeat Blaze. And then maybe Sonic steps in after the fight is over to be like, hey, we're all on the same side here, calm down. You know, this isn't just about wanting Blaze to be in the spotlight again. I think this is also me just expressing how much I would love to see characters like Blaze and Shadow and hell, even the Chaotix, Knuckles even, meeting and interacting with other Sonic characters that they rarely talk to. I want to see a Sonic game that has Blaze, Rouge and Amy bickering with one another. I want a scene where Blaze meets Shadow and even Omega. Hell, Blaze could be like an unofficial member of Team Dark for a little bit. I would love to see that.
Blaze the Cat, Imperial Princess, designation, the only one of Sonic's friends that is worth my time.
I feel that is a backhanded compliment. I cherish all my friends, and I will teach you to respect them.
The only characters that Blaze is really associated with is Sonic, Silver, Cream, and if you want to counter Marine, I guess that's the other question. Would Marine the Raccoon make an appearance in this hypothetical Sonic game where Blaze the Cat returns? I mean, I guess. She's not a popular character, but hell, we live in a timeline now where characters like Black Doom and Mephiles the Dark are relevant again. If there's ever a chance for other characters to return and potentially get a redemption for their more negative reception, now's the time. I feel very optimistic about more Sonic characters being relevant again because I think now's the time to make them not just relevant but also redeemed. Marine the Raccoon has only appeared in Sonic Rush Adventure and yet she's probably one of the most hated characters in the whole series. So why not? Fuck it. Let her also make an appearance. If Blaze the Cat gets a chance in the spotlight again, if we get to have a full-on game where Blaze the Cat's part of the story again, and especially if it takes place in her dimension, let's give Marine the Raccoon another chance too. Why the hell not? Chuck her in there. Moving on though, if you've watched my other videos relating to Sonic, you know that I don't just talk about the games. I could definitely see Blaze the Cat and her backstory of being from another dimension being something that's teased at the end of a Sonic film. Sonic Movie 4, anyone? Post-credit scene, Blaze the Cat shows up with some Soul Emerald and it's just like, hey, I'm from another dimension. It'll be like Gwen Stacy from Into the Spider-Verse. In a way, maybe that would be the smarter choice. Putting Blaze the Cat in a film where we get to explore her backstory being from another dimension and at the same time reset her backstory in a way. She's still from another dimension, we're not doing what 06 did to her, but this could be the opportunity to not only reintroduce her backstory but also remaster her backstory. Start from scratch. This is not the same Blaze from the video game, so having some minor differences to her backstory is fine. For as long as she's from a different dimension, let's just focus on that. Blaze the Cat appearing in a Sonic film, I feel like the plot would obviously be about possibly Sonic ending up into the Soul Dimension. Blaze's debut game was her coming from her dimension to Sonic's dimension. So maybe in the films it could be the other way around. Maybe it could be like how it was in Rush Adventure where Sonic didn't even realise it at first. He and his friends just ended up in Blaze's dimension due to, I don't know, Chaos Control, the equivalent of Chaos Control of the Soul Emerald. Maybe it would be a situation where Chaos Control was triggered at the exact same time in both dimensions, and that caused both the Chaos Emeralds and Soul Emeralds to somewhat align and connect to each other, resulting in the two dimensions crossing over. I must admit, I'm not sure what other elements we could pull from Blaze the Cat's backstory into this scenario for the films. Like, who would her villain be? Who would her antagonist be? Because I am imagining it would be something like Sonic Rush and Rush Adventure, where it would be a character from her dimension that would also come to cause trouble for Sonic's dimension. But would it really be Eggman Nega? As mentioned earlier, I've got a whole video dedicated to Eggman Nega and asking the question, should he return? And in that video, I did suggest the possible idea of, well, what if it was in the movies where Eggman Nega would make his grand return, because that's what everyone's asking for, I'm sure. Jim Carrey is indeed back for the Sonic films, guys, but regardless if Eggman's still around, he's also playing as Eggman Nega. I just want people to picture that for a moment. Eggman Nega being played by Jim Carrey in a movie, just imagine that. I guess if not Eggman Nega, maybe Captain Whiskers could be reworked into a full-on villain. I don't think people would care all that much if they change his backstory. He's only in one game, he's not really important, who cares, right? Hell, maybe that could be the safety net option. Think about it. You introduce Blaze the Cat and Captain Whisker. Captain Whisker is this pirate with his crew, seemingly after the Soul Emeralds. Blaze the Cat doesn't know exactly where he came from, she just knows that he's after the Soul Emeralds, the emeralds that obviously she's destined to protect. Both Blaze and Captain Whisker ends up in Sonic's dimension, or alternatively, Sonic ends up in Blaze's dimension, Blaze and Sonic teams up, defeats Captain Whisker, but then the story comes to a close with the simple question, who built him? Where did he come from? Blaze doesn't have that answer. She still doesn't know exactly where he came from or who designed this machine. And at the end of the movie, maybe we see some mysterious character from Blaze's dimension also ending up in Sonic's dimension, but he's staying hidden in the shadows for now because, well, he doesn't want to be known. He doesn't want people to know that he's here. And then the next movie reveals that it's Jim Carrey playing as Eggman Nega. What can I say, guys? I'm a big fan of my Nega. Are you not a fan of the Nega? I love Eggman Nega. Jokes aside, and let's try not to bring him up anymore in the video, I generally think this could at least be a interesting idea. Whether it be Captain Whiskers or some other mechanical enemy from Blaze's dimension, they could serve as the main big bad to just establish the alternate dimension, the Soul Dimension, being a thing, and establishing Blaze the Cat as a character as well, with the movie ending on a positive note where Sonic and Blaze potentially has the option to travel to the other dimension whenever they feel like, or at least, like I suggested earlier, Tails creates a device that will allow them to keep in touch despite being in different dimensions. But we still end on this question. Captain Whiskers, or whatever this mechanical enemy was, well, he's a robot, he's a machine. Who built it? Someone must have built it. And the movie ends with that being a mystery. And later on in the story, in another film, or possibly other project relating to the Sonic films, maybe Blaze the Cat gets her own show, that would be cool to see, taking place in the Soul Dimension obviously, and it's during that project where we get to meet the man or woman responsible for creating the mechanical antagonist from the previous film in the first place. I think there's some interesting idea there, I think it would be kind of cool. Moving away from that, once again, I just want to see Blaze the Cat get the spotlight more, and alongside her as a character, her super form, Burning Blaze, I want to see that form in action. Whether that be in a video game or in the films, I want to see Burning Blaze in all 3D glory. Whether she's playable or not in the game, whether it's fighting alongside other characters or her fighting by herself, I want to see Burning Blaze kicking ass. You know what else I think is a shame and is also a huge missed opportunity? And just generally surprising when I think about it, Blaze the Cat hasn't appeared in any show for Sonic either. I remember back when Sonic Boom was new, both the game and the show, people were suggesting that maybe Blaze the Cat will make an appearance in the Boom universe. I wouldn't have been against that. As much as I like Rouge in Sonic Prime, at the same time, it was kind of odd that Rouge was seemingly with Team Sonic during that show. I don't know if it would have really made more sense, but imagine, since especially Sonic Prime was meant to be a story about Sonic travelling to different universes, imagine if Blaze the Cat got to be a part of that instead. Even if it still didn't make that much sense to introduce Blaze as just part of Team Sonic at the start of the story, imagine if Blaze the Cat basically replaced Rouge in that show. As much as I liked Rouge from Sonic Prime, maybe that would have been the more interesting choice. Hell, Rouge could still been in Sonic Prime as well, but I don't know. Sonic Prime is a huge missed opportunity when it comes to the whole multiversal department, really, isn't it? I don't think it's completely crazy for me to say it's a shame that the character, with her backstory being from an alternate dimension, didn't make an appearance in a Sonic show where it was all about different dimensions. One more thing about Blaze being in a Sonic game again. Another thing she would absolutely need to have, or I feel like she deserves to have, would be an animated short, just like Shadow with Dark Beginnings. Imagine Blaze the Cat getting to be a part of something like that as well, that focused on her in the Soul Dimension. Anyway, I think I've rambled long enough about this topic. Blaze the Cat deserves more time in the spotlight. It's as simple as that. I would love to see her make an appearance in the films. She doesn't even have to be a regular character, she could just make one appearance in the movies and then that could be it for a while. Give me another Sonic game where Blaze the Cat gets to be playable again. Preferably a 3D game, but I'll settle on another 2D game as well. Anyway, I think I'm good to end the video here. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.